morning and Happy New Year, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today for this fabulous webinar. We have Deirdre Irwin, our Water Conservation Coordinator, who is going to give us a nice overview of the Florida Water Star program. But first, I do want to go over a few of those housekeeping tools or tips for today's meeting. All of you in attendance will be on mute throughout the presentation, but we do hope that the presentation that Deirdre provides does spark some questions, and I want you to enter those questions into the question box on the in the main pane on your dashboard. We will have a period at the end where we have question and answers, so we hope that there's some really good questions. And whether you are in construction, in the building industry, or are in local governments, hopefully you will get some good ideas about ways that water conservation can be achieved in your areas. So Deirdre, without further prolonging, I will hand it over to you, and I appreciate your fantastic presentation today.
Thank you very much, Jennifer, and thanks for having me back. And I'm excited to be here today to talk about a program I've worked with for a number of years, about 15 years now, and that is the Florida Water Star program. So the district started work on this program back around 2000, before I was actually involved. And their goal or mission was to work with the building industry to try and build homes that actually perform at a higher standard for water efficiency. So rather than coming back later and retrofitting water features in a home, if the district developed this program and tried to encourage builders to build homes that are more efficient at the outset, homeowners just buy a home that's water efficient. So the route that they chose at that time was to develop this certification program called Florida Water Star. I'm going to share kind of a high-level overview of the program today, and there's a lot more to it. I urge you to go to the website, floridawaterstar.com, where you can learn more about the program, or feel free to email me directly. So let me move on here. So as mentioned, the St. John's Water Management District launched this program in 2006 after several years of developing and partnering with the University of Florida and others to develop the criteria, where there was a really great focus on having criteria that were achievable and affordable for a builder, yet they performed in terms of water conservation. So as I said, it launched in 2006 for residential construction only, and since then the program has added both commercial and community standards and versions, and launching statewide. The program is extremely collaborative and works with a number of organizations and entities, which you'll hear about as I move forward. So I think it's important to understand some of the terms that I'm using. They're commonly used terms, but they have terms but with very specific meaning. So probably the most important one to understand is, what is a certification program? What does certification mean? It means that a third party inspects and certifies the product, in this case a home, to this higher standard. So it's not like St. John's develop criteria, go out and inspect homes and issue a certification. The St. John's owns the program, develop the criteria, but an outside entities who are trained inspect it, and then a third party actually certifies the home or the product. So a little more about certification programs in general. There are a number of different kinds. These have been popular for a number of years to try and create a higher bar. We have a very robust Florida building code standard in Florida, but all of these programs are a step above. Some of them are national, some of them address holistic concerns like energy, water, indoor air quality, sustainability, but then there are also very specific ones, and Water Star would be considered as specific as it relates only to water use in the home. The #1 certifying entity in the state is the Florida Green Building Coalition, and Water Star works closely. They are a holistic certification program. So what exactly is WaterStar? As I mentioned, it was developed and it's owned by the St. Johns River Water Management District, but it is available statewide in Florida. And we have strong partnerships with both Southwest Water Management District and South Florida, and we have different levels of support from Swanee and Northwest Water Management Districts. A fairly big step we took in 2017 was to partner with the Florida Home Builders Association, FHBA, to administer certification of all of the WaterStar products, meaning homes are commercial projects. Triconic, a private LLC, is partnered with the FHBA to administer WaterStar. So that is where we started bringing in the third-party component of the program. So collaboration with the Florida Home Builders clearly shows that that organization has a great interest in homes in Florida being built to this higher and more efficient standard. It offers a collaboration where we can partner with their builders, their members. We can encourage some of the strategies we're trying to achieve through the WaterStar program. So it's been a really big step and an improvement, and kind of added a more robust component to the WaterStar program. And following up on that, this is kind of a little complex, but basically through the FHBA, Triconic, the company they hired, administers several different certification programs in Florida. Qualified inspectors submit their information from the inspections to the Triconic portal. Two independent testing entities, UL and Intertek, who are global inspection organizations, then verify the information and they either approve or possibly fail an inspection. Upon approval, then, the applicant receives a certificate of compliance from the Triconic organization with the logo or the stamp of the technical inspection company. To date, WaterStar has certified over 6,000 homes, 41 commercial, and 18 communities, which are mainly high-rises, over 2.3 thousand units between all of those community projects. The versions or tiers of the program include residential, which are new homes, both silver and gold. A lot of times we get asked is why maybe existing homes can't achieve WaterStar, and they certainly are willing. We're more than willing to certify those homes. It can be complicated to meet all of the criteria for an existing home, but it has been done and it is possible. We broke out the commercial standard into two. A new standard, and then we worked with a task force in South Florida to develop an existing building certification. So if an existing commercial project wanted to do a significant retrofit and meet the standard, they have a slightly different pathway to achieve certification. The new community is for subdivisions, and what we see most actually is multifamily high-rise communities participating in that version. So within all of the different tiers or versions of the program, there are three categories: irrigation, landscape, and indoor, and you have to achieve all three areas. Obviously, some projects have no irrigation, and it makes it a lot easier to achieve. Indoors is pretty straightforward in the program in terms of it's affordable because these components in the home, the water efficient versions of the appliances and fixtures cost about the same. So we rarely see any issues with compliance on the indoors unless there's a mistake made. Essentially, we're looking at strengthening the water supply lines, more efficient fixtures, and then the appliances like clothes washers and dishwashers. The advent of both the Energy Star program taking on water efficiency, which happened in 2011, and the EPA WaterSense labeling program have made this part of the program much easier, because our inspectors now just have to verify that the fixtures and the appliance have either the WaterSense label or the Energy Star label, and they automatically comply. We do have some criteria, especially in the gold section of WaterStar, for efficient hot water distribution. One of the ways you can achieve that is this picture in the lower right is a manifold plumbing system. It's a little more advanced and it allows dedicated hot water lines going to all of the outlets, so there's less waste when you turn on the hot water faucet. Landscaping then, there's an overarching approach to the WaterStar landscaping section that is somewhat similar to the Florida Friendly program. It's essentially carefully designing the landscape so that the right plant is in the right place. And in addition, we seek to make sure that the landscapes are installed with room to mature over time versus the common installation of what we call an instant landscape, where large plants are put in to look mature on day one. So in a WaterStar home, you'll see smaller plants spaced out a little more so that over time those plants can mature and you will have a more sustainable, essentially lower maintenance landscape. Frequently, when plants are stressed, people tend to either add chemicals or water. And if plants are overcrowded in the landscape, they will actually become stressed. And homeowners oftentimes overuse water to address stress, which might be caused by something else. We also try to make sure that none of our landscapes have any invasive species using the FHBA list, so that we are assisting in reducing the number of invasive species, plant species in Florida. Where possible, we encourage builders to preserve existing vegetation, because that area is already comprised of Florida native species that do not need irrigation. So there's tremendous potential for water savings if you preserve existing vegetation. And then, of course, we encourage not only the addition of shade, but also the correct installation of shade trees. Is a large part of the program. When you increase shade, you reduce evapotranspiration, so there is less watering of turf grass needed. So shade is a very valuable component of water conservation. As we work with the designers and installers as they're designing the landscapes, we look closely at the site conditions and the location of the landscape beds to be sure that the plants being installed are compatible both with each other and with the site conditions. In an effort to reduce irrigation, we look for reduced turf grass areas. So traditionally in Florida, homes would have, or historically have had, 80 to 90% turf grass. And that is the area that uses most water in irrigation. So by reducing that turf grass to 60% or less water is used on the landscape. As I mentioned, correct tree installation, and then the addition, and this is standard practice, of mulch, but trying to make sure it's the correct depth of mulch per the university standards, and also is not overly mulched, especially adjacent to trees. So most of these criteria for the landscaping are based on established BMPs, and when implemented successfully can result in a landscape that's both attractive and water conserving. Moving on to irrigation, and this is kind of where the rubber hits the road a little bit. It's definitely, there's a little more challenging for many of our builders, and this is where some cost increases. There are cost increases in the landscape section because you're buying usually more plants and more mulch, whereas turf grass is actually the cheapest component of installing a landscape. So there is additional cost. So looking at irrigation then, there are three vital components to efficient irrigation on any landscape, residential or commercial. So correct design and installation to maximize efficiency, correct system scheduling, i.e. the controller, and then frequent maintenance of that system. So WaterStar seeks to address at least two of those and attempts to minimize long-term maintenance by having a really well-installed system. Most water savings are achieved outdoors in Florida. We know now from tracking water use over time that if you have an in-ground irrigation system, at least half of your household water use is outdoors. So addressing this one area of water use in the home can result in significant savings. Close attention to the irrigation design and installation will yield savings that we are all seeking in this area. So we want to see that the system is designed to have fewer leaks. I know that sounds really obvious, but without fail, when our inspectors go out and look at an irrigation system, they will find some leaks. As you can imagine, these systems are installed. There's a lot of traffic on the site. Sometimes heads get broken. Sometimes they're just not installed correctly. We also seek to make sure that the application of water in the turfgrass area is even and adequate to both to the size and to the type of turfgrass installed. Another component that we look at is pressure, the operating pressure of the irrigation system. So that picture on the right, I know many of you have seen, where you see a row of spray heads and all this atomization of water. That's because the system is overpressurized and the water is coming out at such a velocity that it's causing that atomization. So WaterStar systems are installed so that the zone, the irrigation zone, is meeting the manufacturer's recommendations for pressure. That is achieved with pressure regulation. So the program does require pressure regulation either at the sprinkler head or at the zone to try and address that component of water loss. In the commercial part of WaterStar, we also require, oops, I went back a little too fast there. We also require a water budget. So as you can imagine, a commercial project has a different needs aesthetically, and the prescriptive approach of 60% turf grass, 40% beds might not apply. So the program came up with a different approach, and that's using a water budget. So there is no prescriptive percentage of turf grass, but the system has to be designed not to use more than 25 inches per square foot annually. And the designer has to submit the actual water budget using the tool that we developed for the program. No. Oh, sorry about that. I was going backwards. So when we launched the program, we learned really quickly that even though the BMPs were accepted and we knew they would perform and get us the savings we needed, that the industries involved weren't necessarily trained or used to implement designing and installing projects that included all of these criteria. So, and this is where our partnership started. The district partnered with the Florida Nursery Growers, FGBC, with the Florida Nursery Growers Association, with the Florida Irrigation Society, and we got input and support for developing training programs. And the FNGLA is our primary partner for training, the designers and installers, because they work closely with that industry professionally. The district developed training programs for the inspectors, and now Triconic runs that training. So bringing in new inspectors have a pretty rigorous process to become trained. And we also developed a very robust website that clearly explains the thought process, the criteria, and it provides a lot of additional resources. In doing so, we work to make that website, floridawaterstar.com, very easy to navigate. So if you are not ready to participate in a certification program, or if you're a homeowner just looking to retrofit to have a more efficient home, the technical manual of the program is very easy to understand. It's printable page by page, and it's so that homeowners and the general public can learn more about how to have or build a water efficient home. So I mentioned our relationship with the Florida Nursery Growers and Landscape Association, the FNGLA. And very quickly, we launched this WaterStar AP. It's an accreditation for professionals in the industry in partnership with the FNGLA, so that they may become accredited in how to design and install a landscape that meets the WaterStar criteria. What we didn't anticipate was how popular this particular component of the program. We work hard to keep this training relatively inexpensive. In some cases, it's sponsored by a local government or another water management district and can be free. And it provides very hands-on, useful information for the industry. So since 2010, when we launched it, we have had over 50 workshops. We do 2 or 3 a year. They are usually in-person workshops. We try to spread them out throughout the entire state, so we're covering all the regions. And we've had over 1,300 people attend since 2010. Alachua County has a unique situation where they have a building code or an ordinance within their local government that requires homes be built in a very similar fashion to WaterStar outside, and they allow self-inspection of these homes if you have WaterStar AP accreditation. So every year we have 2 or 3 workshops in Alachua County to bring on board new inspectors. So whether or not you're building or certifying a WaterStar home, we find that this particular training is very popular amongst the landscape and irrigation industry as a standalone training. The exams are online, and registration and follow-up CEUs are all processed through the Florida Nursery Growers Association. So at this point, I think I've shared a little bit about the program and why what is involved. So a lot of people at this point are asking, so why would a builder even become involved in this? And in asking builders and over time learning from their discussions with them, a lot of them want to stand out in the marketplace. They want to have a home that performs better for the homeowner, especially the not-for-profit builders like Habitat and a variety of not-for-profit builders that we work with. They want homes that are cheaper to operate and save money for the homeowner. In some cases, there's a green multiple listing service or MLS, and a home like a WaterStar home will actually have a higher resale value because of the water's conserving features. Sometimes a builder just wants to stand out in a very busy marketplace and have homes that are just built to a higher standard. It helps with his marketing appeal, and the program helps wherever we can with promoting the WaterStar homes for that builder. And then more recently, we've seen the home being used as another strategy to encourage sustainable homes in a local government. So there are often local rebates from the local government for certification of the homes. Or it's even built into local code that homes have to be built to this higher standard. So it's been kind of harnessed to assist local governments who are trying to address their water use. We've done a little bit of research into the performance, because no matter how well you design a program, how it actually performs is what really matters. And to us at the Water Management District, there's no point in having a program if it isn't actually saving water. So a few years ago, we partnered with UF and Toho Water in Kissimmee and took a close look at the homes and how they were performing. We have also done a smaller study with the On Top of the World development. On Top of the World builds all homes to WaterStar standard, and also we've worked with SwiftMud to quantify, and we've seen a similar savings of in the 40s for water savings, most of that occurring outdoors. As I mentioned, the program has been used in a number of different ways. It has been mandated by either a utility as a condition of service, or rebates are offered, like OUC in Orlando offers a $300 rebate on the connection fee for homes and $100 for apartments. So there can be an incentive there for builders then to build a more efficient home. The City of Palm Coast has a number of different ways you can gain rebates for green built homes, including a 20% impact fee refund if you're doing WaterStar. Alachua, as I mentioned, essentially has adopted the WaterStar criteria into building code for the outdoor portion of the home. And then in other parts of the state, Southwest Water Management District has closely adopted components or used WaterStar in a number of ways to promote conservation. There are $700 rebates in Polk County, St. Pete, and again, I mentioned Ocala on top of the world. Although actually I need to correct myself there. There aren't rebates in Ocala. It's actually mandated now for every new home in the on top of the world development to be built to the program. Mulberry and Davenport are two other local governments who've adopted WaterStar in code. And then most recently, late last year, Tampa Bay Water has partnered with its local member utilities to offer $1,000 rebates for WaterStar homes that use potable water. So they are trying to encourage the areas that still use potable for irrigation to build these more efficient homes to this standard. So I'm looking at the clock, about 5 minutes left, Jennifer. So I left time for some questions, or maybe you will have some follow-up questions yourself.
Fabulous. We have several questions that have been coming in. I really appreciate that wonderful and thorough explanation of WaterStar and the program. One of the questions that came in is, do developers that might be able to leave trees or plants rather than clear cutting get any sort of credit in the WaterStar program?
Yeah, they absolutely do. In the Gold program, you get a lot of credit for preservation of existing landscapes. And then also they save money because that's landscape they don't have to scrape down, put in new plants. It's already established, native, and doesn't need irrigation. I will say we do not see a lot of those because by the time the builder comes along, a large development has already been cleared and the stormwater system is installed, and most of our builders buy lots. It's the developer who makes the decision on whether to preserve. So mostly the homes that do preservation are existing lots on native land where it's maybe a single family home or the like.
Okay, great. There was a follow-up question about, and you may have covered it a little bit, but how many counties have built Florida WaterStar into their codes? Counties or local governments? I know you mentioned about 5 of them, but
yeah, and I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. I think 5 to 7. Now, there are a lot more. Those are ones that actually require the program as designed and they want a certification. There is a large number of local governments, maybe even 20, that have taken the criteria of the program, perhaps in particular, the irrigation criteria, lifted it and put it exactly as written into their ordinance so that if they're adding an irrigation ordinance in their community, these criteria are written for them, essentially. And I meet with a lot of those local governments, and because we've pilot tested and we know these are achievable and affordable, they seem very content to just lift the language and put it in code. So it isn't certification, but it achieves the same thing. It's a more efficient irrigation system.
fabulous. So what would be the #1 recommendation you would give to an existing homeowner in terms of improving their water use in their home or in their landscape? What would you suggest that they do first?
Well, indoors, if they were looking at retrofitting fixtures and appliances, definitely look at buying WaterSense, toilet showers, faucets, or Energy Star, which is what most people buy anyway. And I know the big box stores carry a large variety. They cost the exact same and they use at least 20% less than current code. Outdoors, and I work closely with our utilities and the water conservation coordinators, and they've given me a list of 3 top things, behavior changes that will save the most water. And the #1 is abiding by the irrigation restrictions. Really simple. The 2-day-a-week or 1-day-a-week rule that's in effect throughout our district, making sure you only water on those days. working with your utility or a private entity to have an evaluation or audit done of your system. Remember, in most parts of Florida, there are no requirements for standards for irrigation, so it's quite likely your irrigation system is not installed or designed to be efficient. So maybe partnering up with a utility or a private irrigation person to look at what can be done to make it more efficient. And then lastly, take a look at some of the new smart controllers that are available that use either soil moisture or evapotranspiration to turn on and off your controller. There's lots of them now with Wi-Fi capability, and they have been shown in multiple studies to save a lot of water. So those would be my top 3.
All right, sounds great. I have a couple more questions. I do want to thank everyone for participating today. I will remind you that this webinar will be recorded and will be on our website, but I do want to get to those couple of questions that I had coming in. So if you're interested in getting those answered, then please stay on. But for those of you who have to run at 11, thank you so much for joining, and we look forward to your questions about Florida Water Star, and thank you for your participation. So Deirdre, the next one was about local governments and if they're incentivized to get involved to change their building code and development orders for old and new multi-residential developments. So is there any incentives?
A lot of times, if it's a local government that has a utility within the local government, and that utility might be, probably has to get a consumptive use permit from us, and they're looking at all of their options to conserve water. Oops, sorry about that. My automatic light went off. Let me stand up and see if I can get it. There we go. If they are looking for ways to conserve water, a lot of times they approach us, or they hire a local contractor to help them devise a new code so that they know all new homes are more efficient. The district offers a service where we will help them and provide advice and make sure the language they're developing is consistent with any of our other rules. So that's a big incentive. In our cost share program, we don't really cost share rule development, but certainly rebates, water conserving rebates are often co-funded by the district's own water conservation cost share program. So those are 2 of the ways.
Fabulous. And does the criteria that's in Water Star that the builders have to meet, is it reviewed on a regular basis with the intent to add or remove requirements to continually be improving that water efficiency?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We do have a technical advisory committee of about, I think we have 18 or 19 experts in their fields, indoors and out. And every year we have a meeting. We bring up issues that we've had. Trust me, builders have no problem telling you when they think a criterion is too hard, too easy, or they could do more. So we address those every single year. We bring up issues, we discuss it with the technical advisory committee, and we sometimes make changes. In the early days of the program, it felt like every year we were making a lot of changes. At this point, we've got reasonable criteria that we know work. And new builders might have issues with them, but we know that they're achievable, affordable, and we are not making so many changes. What we have seen is that some of our local governments in Central Florida who are striving to achieve even more savings take Water Star and make it even stricter. They sometimes restrict irrigation in the backyards of the house. So it's a higher bar than Water Star. So that is something that we've played around with, but we're not quite at the point. Remember, we're trying to bring in as many as possible. This is kind of an entry point. Water Star Silver would be the first step to a water efficient building strategy. then at a higher level WaterStar Gold, which reminds me we're in the midst of changing that program through a partnership with UF, the Florida Friendly Landscaping Program. I should have mentioned this earlier. We are developing a higher bar that's more inclusive of other components with UF, and we're about to start pilot testing that version soon. So yeah, it's always in flux, the criteria.
Fabulous. It's always good to hear that a program is looking for new opportunities and growth. So Deirdre, thank you again so much, and thank you all for your attention today. And please feel free to email myself or Deirdre if you have further questions, and we look forward to your participation in our next webinar. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Jennifer. Bye, everyone.